Rowan here, and today we have 2 quick tips to break the mark. These are going to be a quick sample from my upcoming Ultimate Frisbee throwing course when we talk about breaking that mark. So here's 2 activities from that course. The first one we're going to talk about is, since we hear a lot about release points, high release, low release, stepping out, today we're going to talk about release timing. And by that we mean if you can get past the mark, we want to have a quick release. The slower it takes us to throw, that's when the mark closes that window and gets back into position. So just like the NBA shooters who can catch and shoot really quick, we want to develop that skill as we break the mark. So the 3 things we're going to work on right now is we're going to start in this backhand stance, and we're just going to quickly pivot over and release that forehand. Now we can also start with this forehand stance, pivot over and release the backhand. So we're going to put 5 minutes on the clock for each activity we cover in my course and work on those skills. The 3 cues we want to talk about here with this release timing is 1, we want to lean into the pivot quickly. So a quick little lean here, that's going to get the mark to shift a little bit and also allow us to pop off that to get to that break side. So a little lean in here, pop and break. You can do the same thing on the backhand. We're going to kind of lean into that pivot to give us some momentum off it and also get the mark out of position. Feel free, if you want, you can kind of throw that little fake 2, which might get the mark to lunge a little bit more before you break. The second cue we want to practice in this 5-minute block is to be wrist dominant. We don't want to step across our body and have to wind up and make the throw. The mark's going to close that down every time. There's a fraction of a second we have to break. So what we want to do is when we get here, it's just a quick wrist snap, which is the fastest way we can release the disc. So on this backhand, quick lean, get it into your throwing hand, and it's a quick wrist. We're not hucking break throws, so we don't need to throw it so far, but we want to have that quick release ready. Third thing, we want to practice securing the grip across our body. So throughout, this week or outside of class, keep working on the ability to go from forehand to backhand, backhand to forehand. We don't want to be fumbling with the disc as we try to break with our speed release. All right, now we're going to put that 5 minutes on the clock. You're going to work on these quick release pivots with your partner. 5 minutes are going to go by. We're going to bring you back in to go over the next activity. Now in class, you have that full 5 minutes, but since today's just a sample, we're going to go ahead and get started on topic number 2. Remember, registration for our class is still open. For this course, we're going to have 4 separate classes: breaking the mark, touch, angles and spin, and advanced throwing. This is just a portion of what breaking the mark is going to look like. I'll coach a skill for a minute or 2, and then you're going to do that activity for 5 minutes. The only space you need is 10 to 15 yards. There's not going to be any hucking or far throwing. It's all short range, focused throwing. All right, let's move on to the second part about breaking the mark here, and that's changing our depths. We want to be able to read the mark and not only step out laterally to get around the mark, but either through or back and around. So for the next 5 minutes here in this session, we're going to work on starting in our stance a little bit up, dropping back across our body, and throwing that outside in break. Now we can do that on both sides here. Flick back. And now since we're stepping back here, we want to change our depth forward. So from this back stance, we're going to step through, seal the defender, and break through. Okay, so 5 minutes on the clock, starting up, stepping back and around, or vice versa, starting back, stepping through and sealing. 3 cues to work on for this activity. 1 is visualize the mark. Some marks are going to have a tendency to play tight and aggressive. That's going to put us on our heels, but that's a great time to step through because we can actually seal them in. The other mark sometimes plays a little bit loose, That's gonna allow us to be up in our stance. When the mark is back and loose, that's a great time to step back. Since you have this space, you can throw it around and get a nice break around. Okay, second cue here for the depths is that when we do go back and around, we don't want to throw a blade. We kind of want the disc to sit out to that break side. So work on a little outside in, but also a little bit flat as well. And the last cue here, just like we talked about release timing, you know, the faster we can kind of step through and release or step back and release, the better. Breaking the mark always comes down to a fraction of a second. So even while we're working on changing our depths, keep in mind with that release timing. All right, 5 minutes back on the clock. You're gonna go throw, bring it back, and then we'll hit the next one. All right, I hope you're able to learn a couple things about breaking the mark. Again, our class is structured, so we'll have about 7 or 8 of these blocks that you learn a little bit and then go practice. Our course lasts 4 weeks. If you want to register, the information and the steps are below. I'm looking forward to class. Looks like we already got enough people to run it. Now let's just fill it up.